Karl-Anthony Towns trade is not just a win, it's a crazy win for the Knicks. And then we'll also talk about, are the Boston Celtics still a title favorite? So let's get into that. So first let's talk about Karl-Anthony Towns and how his success in New York honestly took me by surprise. I think it took a lot of people by surprise because here's the thing. I thought offensively, obviously, Cat makes them better, right? We know who Cat is on the offensive side of the ball. Very, very talented, does a whole bunch of really good things. I was concerned about the defense, which he has definitely shown a ton of improvements on defense since he has been with the Knicks. But that's not even the biggest improvement I've seen from him, which is kind of crazy to say. The biggest improvement that I have seen is from him offensively, because one of the things that Shaq and Charles used to get on Cat about when the Timberwolves would have a TNT game or something, they would always complain about Cat standing on the three-point line, taking so many threes. And granted, Cat is a very good three-point shooter. Actually, funny enough, I saw a stat today, I think, that if Cat finishes the season, because right now I think he's leading the league in rebounds, if he finishes the season averaging 13 or more rebounds, which he's doing right now, and shooting 40% from three, he will be the only player in NBA history to do that except for Kevin Love. So he will be the second player to do that. I guess I should have said that first, not the only player. But besides Kevin Love, he will be the only player to ever do that. So that's definitely something crazy. But despite that stat about his three-point shooting, Cat has been getting in the paint, going back to what Shaq and, Charles used to complain about Cat, what he wasn't doing, was going to the paint, getting fouled, they always say little guys can't guard you, stuff like that, right? But it's a completely different Cat. The energy, the effort to get to the basket, pushing people out of the way, backing people down the paint, it's completely different. And I'm not saying he didn't do that on Minnesota at all. And what's really, I guess, weird, but not weird, is I've looked up Cat's drives per game this season compared to last season or something like that. And technically by the numbers, it's down. So I was but it seems like he's driving more. Well, that's probably because it's more efficient. So we're seeing him drive and he's actually getting results, whereas maybe sometimes in the past when he would drive on Minnesota, he would just end up turning the ball over and stuff like that. So even though he may be driving the ball less to the basket technically by the numbers, I think it's by 2, I think it was 9.2 drives and now it's 7.7, but he's getting more results. So you could just tell the aggressiveness, everything about how he is performing on the offensive side of the ball has really took me by surprise. And I am very excited to see this side of Cat. He literally looks so confident. He looks like he knows exactly what he's doing. And that's not to say he didn't know what he's doing before, but if you watch Cat in Minnesota and you watch him now, you can tell there is a difference. And some of that may also be, due to personnel. The way that the Knicks play basketball and the team that they have around Cat is obviously different than the team that he had on Minnesota. And I'm not even talking about the days when it was him and Andrew Wiggins. That was a long time ago and they were a lot younger. I'm even talking about the last couple of seasons with Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert. They obviously had a good team. And you have Jaden McDaniels, and you have Naz Reid. So it's nothing about the players on the team itself, but the way that the team is designed, this Knicks team, the way that they play basketball and the way that they feature Cat, and the way that Tibbs is probably coaching him up. They're just, giving him different looks and, coaching him up to play a bit different. So, if you watch the Knicks, you know that he's been playing out of his mind. He is a top 5 MVP candidate, which is crazy. I did not go into the season thinking Cat would be a top 5 MVP candidate. And the numbers back it up. He's so efficient. He just dropped 40 again last night, which is I don't know how many times he's done that this season, but a bunch. And although you still know it's Jalen Brunson's team, and Jalen Brunson is the leader of that team, right? You know, in the clutch, Jalen Brunson's coming through, showing up, all that stuff, right? But Cat has just taken the second option, I guess, if you want to call it. Because, like, I feel like technically he can be deemed as the first scoring option depending on the night. I feel like when it comes down to the stretch, though, you're obviously Jalen Brunson is the first option. But I'm saying, like, generally speaking, Cat can get baskets in some ways, maybe that Jalen Brunson can't, and vice versa. But either way, whether you think he's the first scoring option or the second scoring option, doesn't really matter. Because again, Jalen Brunson could easily be the first scoring option too. That's not the point of what I'm saying. But the way that he is taking on whatever role he is given on the Knicks is just incredible. Like, I am very, very impressed. So look out for Cat. Like, if he's going to keep playing like this, man, the Knicks are scary, especially when Mitchell Robinson comes back, because, like, that was also one of the issues, you know, early on in the season, is that they obviously don't have Mitchell Robinson, who is a top offensive rebounder in the league and a very good rim protector and defender and stuff like that. And on top of that, Cat is not the best defender, and he was, you know, learning an entire new system, teammates, all that stuff. So that's only going to make it harder to play defense at first. And Precious Achiuwa was out for the first month, like for a little while. So they really were like thin on defense at the center position, and you basically had to rely on Cat. And so at first you could see the struggles, you know, from the team altogether, because it was just very, very, you know, it was hard to incorporate a new player like that, someone who is such a big part of their offense now. But regardless, like, shout out to Cat. Like, he has really been awesome. So I think the Knicks clearly won this trade. I don't think it's a debate anymore. When the trade happened, I definitely thought it was a win-win for both sides in a way. Like I said, I knew Cat would make them better offensively. I was nervous about the defense. And again, I never saw this side of Cat. I understand he was always talented. He always put up numbers in Minnesota, and it's not like he didn't do good things. I'm not trying to discredit what he did in Minnesota. But again, you could just tell there's a difference. So, like, I didn't see all this coming personally. So, like, he proved me wrong. So I definitely thought, again, it wasn't a bad trade for the Knicks. I just wasn't sure how it was going to work out. And then for Minnesota, I obviously know they have not played as well as people had hoped they would after the trade. And I thought that it was also a win for Minnesota because, you know, DiVincenzo, we know what he did last year. And I thought Julius Randle was a better fit with Rudy Gobert than Cat is. And regardless, something I said in that video was like, even if it doesn't work out with Julius Randle, his contract is up, so his money will be off the books. And to me, they had tried it so long with the Cat. Well, they tried so long to have Cat be, you know, one of the stars of the team. And then they also, again, tried it for quite a few years with Cat and Ant-Man. And they had some success, don't get me wrong, but, like, I felt like it was clear that it was time to move on, especially given his contract, which is very large, and he still has like 3 or 4 years left on his deal. And just the way that Minnesota has to pay some guys soon, and clearly they were not going to, well, it seemed like they were not going to end up winning a championship with that team as it was. So with that being said, I felt like it was best for both sides. Even again, if Minnesota is not playing as well as I thought they would initially after the trade, I still feel like in the end, this is a win for them because it was time to move on from Cat. I really do think, personally, and, you know, maybe living-wise and stuff like that, Cat didn't seem like he wanted to leave, right? He seemed happy in Minnesota. Like, he didn't seem like he wanted to leave the team at all. It was, like, you know, reported that he was, like, really shocked when he got traded. And so from a personal standpoint and, you know, mental standpoint, I'm not going to say that it was the best thing for him in that sense because I don't know him. But in terms of, like, basketball-wise, I honestly think this was the best thing that could have happened to Cat because, like, look how he's playing. Again, it may not have felt like that at first for him, and I don't know what he's feeling now, but I feel like basketball-wise, we all see that, like, this was probably the best thing for him because look at the way that he's playing. So that's what I want to say about Cat. And then quickly, I just want to talk about the Boston Celtics and say or rather ask the question, do we still think they are the title contenders or one of the title favorites? Because they've had their moments this season. They're obviously second in the Eastern Conference. They're still winning games, doing their thing. But at the same time, they have not looked as dominant this season. They've had some, they've had some losses where you're a little bit questionable and stuff like that. And that happens, throughout the season. Every team has some questionable losses because it's a long season, right? You can't win 82 games. And so, I'm not saying anything about that, but, just in general, they haven't looked as dominant. But, again, keep in mind, they're still second in the Eastern Conference. So clearly they're doing pretty well. But this is something I did say before the season started. I can't remember if I put them at the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed. I think I put them at the 2nd seed because I felt like some of what is happening was going to happen. I felt like coming off a championship, they were going to still be good. I thought at first they would struggle a bit more without Porzingis. So I was wrong on that part. I thought they would struggle a little bit more when he was out. But my general, thought process was that they're going to be a little less dominant this year because they don't necessarily feel like they have as much to prove. And I don't know if that's a good way to explain it, but you know what I mean. When you win a championship, and especially other players have talked about when you win championships and stuff like that, the regular season games, they're harder to get up for because nothing compares to, playing in the NBA finals, the level, the intensity and stuff like that, right? So I did feel like they were obviously still going to be good, but I did feel like they weren't going to put 100%, or rather not even 100%, 200% effort out every game. And I'm not trying to discredit their effort. So I don't want, Joe Mazzulla to come at me, make one of those, quotes he makes. He has all these famous quotes. But I'm just saying there's a difference when you're chasing a championship in the regular season. You really want that #1 seed. And then when you've won a championship and you know that you don't need the #1 seed. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I feel like the Boston Celtics are at. They could probably, at this point, obviously, it's tough with the Cavs, but coming out of this, when the season started, they could have came out the gate firing and just trying so hard to get the #1 seed, but you want to be healthy when the season ends. It's not necessarily necessary to do that, right? They can win being the #2 seed. So I definitely do think they're still in contention for a title, right? I don't think they're out of it, but obviously, you always do have to make sure you keep that hunger when the playoff comes. And I'm not saying they won't have it, and I'm not saying they definitely won't do that. I'm just saying that is the only thing to look out for. Make sure they still, have that same energy when the playoff comes around, but I'm sure they will. And then we'll just see how the results happen, right? We'll just see what happens. Someone said, what do you think about the Luka trade? Apparently it was because he was overweight. I gotta be honest, we have discussed the Luka trade so many times, and there is so much information that comes out every single day. I don't know what the reason was, honestly, at this point. I know what was reported about his weight, his conditioning, the money, and I'm not saying none of those things are true because I'm not in the front office. I'm not there. So I'm not discrediting them and saying that they're not saying things that they believe. But at the end of the day, I just feel like the consensus is still the same. We feel like we as a general, NBA fan people, we feel like there has to be more to the story because we feel like that's not enough to trade Luka, in our opinion. Again, they have different opinions. That's fine. They are entitled to trade him technically because they, are the GM, the owner and stuff like that. So while we don't agree with them trading him, they can technically do that, right? But the other issue is, and this is the issue that I feel like is more jarring and is why a lot of fans are even more upset, is the return you got back for Luka. And I don't want to, keep going over this again and again and again because I'm sure people are tired of hearing it. But just to answer your question quickly, AD, great player, right? But something I said throughout every time I talked about this, and everybody else was saying the same thing, You can't say you're worried about Luka's conditioning and his health when you trade for a player who has way more injury concerns and injury history than him. It's just point blank. That doesn't make sense, right? Nothing against AD as the player. Again, I'll say it every time. AD is awesome. Like, when AD is on, you can't stop him, right? Offensively, defensively. We know this. So, like, I always want to make that clear. But the first game, now he's out indefinitely. And again, like, we all didn't want to see AD get hurt. Like, we don't want to, but we all kind of saw this coming. And it's just like, how could you trade for someone with more injury history and say the reason that you traded your guy is because of his injury history? And your guy is 25 and the guy you traded for is about to be 32. So that just, something just doesn't add up. And again, the package, like, you got AD, Max Christie, and 1 pick. I know that the reports are like they didn't want it to get out because they didn't want Luka to basically, maybe say he didn't want to go to LA, and apparently he was set on getting Anthony Davis. Like, he wanted him. That was who he wanted. Again, these are all the reports allegedly. I'm just going based on what we saw or what we heard or read. And so at the end of the day, we say just open it up to the entire league, start a bidding war, because you could have gotten like 10 first-round picks for Luka. Like, nothing would ever be enough for Luka, honestly, but like, you could have gotten like 10 first-round picks. Seriously. But the point is, like, at the end of the day, even if you were set on Anthony Davis, the fact that they literally are basically saying, hey, listen, we got Anthony Davis for Luka. That's basically what they're saying. Like, yes, they got Max Christie, who is a young up-and-coming player, and they got 1 pick. But basically they're saying to the fans, Anthony Davis equates to Luka, because they could have got, the Lakers had more picks to trade. The Lakers had more players to trade. And again, I know the report is that they apparently asked for more, and then because Rob Pelinka couldn't talk to Luka to see if he wanted to extend there, he negotiated down, whatever. But in my opinion, if I'm Nico Harrison, I say, okay, no deal then. If you don't give me all your picks, Dalton Connect, Austin Reeves, Anthony Davis, and I know you have to make the money work if you add Austin Reeves and stuff like that, but like, the point is, like, I would say no thank you. No thank you then. I don't think that's enough value for Luka. That's my opinion. Like, that's what I would say. And there's no way that Rob Pelinka, in the end, he knows what the value of Luka is. He wouldn't have been like, you know what? I'm going to kill the deal because I have to give up another first-round pick in Dalton Connect. Do you think he really would have done that? Right? So that's why people are really frustrated, because, like, there's no way Rob Pelinka would have said no. Obviously, if he asked for LeBron and AD, then he would be like, all right, we're not doing that, because, like, that doesn't make sense. Even then, though, because Luka's still the future, but still, he would be like, that doesn't make sense. But it's the fact that, like, you could have definitely, in my opinion, not there, not in the conversations, but I feel like a lot of the consensus for what a lot of us feel is that you should have, if the reports that they originally had more on the table, and then Rob Pelinka obviously said no because he couldn't talk to Luka, whatever, because that's his job to negotiate. Like, Rob Pelinka is doing his job. Like, that is what he's supposed to do. Give up the least and get the most. So there's nothing wrong with what Rob Pelinka did in that sense. But again, if I'm Nico Harrison, I'm saying, okay, no deal then. And I just can't see a world where Rob Pelinka says we're not doing the deal because we have to give up an extra pick or two and Dalton Connect, maybe Austin Reeves or maybe somebody else. Like, I just can't see that. So that is where I stand on that. So thank you guys so much for joining this live. I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you soon.